What's up, modern gaming fans? Hope everyone had a good New Year's and happy holidays and all that. I figured a good way to kick 2024 off would be to backtrack through 2023 and showcase my top 5 ranked games for the entire year. As in, my personal ranking of my top 5 games that I actually played in 2023. A simple concept that I don't need to explain further to pad out the intro, so without further ado, let's kick it off straight away with my first choice for number 5. Number 5, Like a Dragon Ishin Kiwami, formerly known to Western fans as Yakuza Ishin, which is funny because the time period predates the Japanese Mafia. This being a Kiwami edition just means it is remastered from the last gen engine, and instead of using the Dragon engine they opted to use the Unreal, to keep a very similar art style and design from the original game, which I was a fan of. Yakuza fans have been waiting for a long time for Sega to greenlight this thing for the West, as it was a Japanese exclusive for many years. I myself have desperately wanted a copy since Ishin features a multitude of character cameos from every other Yakuza / Like a Dragon game. And this year we finally got it. The game looks amazing, the music is beautiful, and the story was still fun. The only downsides are that they took plenty of liberties for this remake, which were very hit or miss. The combat was changed to rely on the card system far more, with bosses themselves using similar superpowers, which many people did not like. The biggest change though were that some of the characters were entirely removed and swapped for different cameos, most of which being from Yakuza 5 switched out for Yakuza 7. This means most people missed out on a couple of fan favorites. I'm still bummed out that Hiroshi Hayashi is gone, but I think the most unfortunate changes were the real-life historical figures being swapped for more Yakuza characters. I mean, everyone in the game is based on a historical Japanese figure, of course, but specifically Takeshi Hanpieda and Kondo Isami retained an original appearance that was removed in this remake. Again, not a big deal, but it undeniably changes the game. Otherwise, I'm just glad that we finally have this gem, tweaked it may be, which is why it's my number 5. Number 4, Lies of P came in clutch this year, filling in for From Software since they did not release a new Souls-like game in 2023. Or any Elden Ring DLC for that matter. Holy shit, they need to hurry up with that if it actually exists. Anyways, I played the Lies of P demo and was thoroughly impressed. I knew I was going to play the full game as soon as it released, and man, I was not disappointed. Lies of P takes plenty of inspiration from Dark Souls games, and more specifically, Bloodborne, which is my favorite game of all time. The combat was very fluid, and the unique mechanics were fun to experiment with. My only gripe with Lies of P is the story. I felt that the premise was very interesting until you progress further and further, where the originality of it starts to slip, and the plot twist at the end was not that thrilling. But otherwise, the lore itself was serviceable, especially since it's meant to be a dark twist on the original Pinocchio story. Clearly, I don't need to tell you that if you played the game though. So yeah, a great Souls-like, if not the best one so far that wasn't published by FromSoft themselves, which is why it's in my number 4 spot. Number 3, Alan Wake 2, the Game Awards sweeper. Now, I played the first Alan Wake for the first time this year, 2023 that is, and I thought it was fine, but then this game rolled out and man, I enjoyed it so much more. A friend and I split the playable sections between Wake and Anderson into like a duo playthrough, which works surprisingly well. I recommend it. The game is one of the best looking I've ever played and one of the most unique. I made an entire review video about it already though, if you're interested in a more in-depth discussion. I felt I may have focused on the negatives a little too much in that vid, namely how I'm not the biggest fan of the writing style, but even then, I can't deny how great the game is, which is why it's my pick for number 3. Number 2, Dead Space Remake, the game that everyone forgot came out this year. This is one of the best remakes to come out in recent memory. I thought they did a fantastic job and hope we get a Dead Space 2 remake next. Unfortunately, this game was competing with too many bangers this year, so it did not make the cut for most people, but I remember it quite fondly, especially after playing the piece of garbage that is the Callisto Protocol. I made a long video about it going over the impossible mode. In it, I hinted at possibly making a video on Kendra Daniels as a character, since I find her very inconsistent. I've since lost interest in the idea since I moved on from the game and I don't really care about her that much anymore, but hey, maybe one day I'll get around to it, especially if there's enough interest. Anyways, Dead Space is such a timeless classic for survival horror. I just got the platinum for this remake recently as well, so I may have some memory bias, but oh well, I'll root for the underdog that no one else will. So, it's my number 2. Now for the obligatory honorable mentions, real quick. I did not play Baldur's Gate 3 as of this recording. I do plan on it eventually. Yes, I know it's a masterpiece, I just haven't played it yet. I have played Spider-Man 2 though, just made a great video on it that you should definitely watch afterwards if you have not, but it also didn't quite make it on my list. As for Yakuza, Like a Dragon Gaiden also came out at the end of 2023. I thought it was fine. Again, didn't quite make my list though, as I preferred Ishin just a little bit more. As for every other good game that came out this year that I failed to mention, I just haven't played them yet either. But hey, we have all of 2024 to catch up. Moving on to my final pick, my choice for the best game of 2023. Number 1, Resident Evil 4 Remake, the third survival horror game in a row. If you couldn't tell, I'm a big fan of the genre. So, what makes Resident Evil 4 Remake special? Why is it my number 1? Well, because OG Resident Evil 4 has always been one of my favorite games ever for my entire life, and this remake not only did it justice, it definitively improved upon the original in a way that I could have only dreamed of as a kid. The combat is perfect, the visuals are perfect, the character redesigns are alright, the voice acting is questionable at times. Look, I'm not saying it's a perfect game, I recognize the many faults it has and prefer a lot of things in the original game, such as every single cutscene. But I can't deny the great job they did faithfully remaking one of the best games ever made. Capcom had a lot of pressure on them for this one, especially with how bad they fumbled the RE3 remake, goddamn that game sucks, and then turned the tables and made their best remake yet by far. I loved my time with Resident Evil 4 Remake, loved getting 100% in it, and then they released separate ways with all the missing content that was removed from the main story, alongside the free Mercenaries mode. So now it's basically as good as a Resident Evil 4 Remake could ever get, and I'm glad for it, which is why it's my top choice for my favorite game that came out in 2023. And with that, we have covered all my top 5 picks. These were only my subjective choices based on what I'm into, not really saying any of the games that came out were better or worse than each other. Hope you all enjoyed watching. Feel free to let me know in the comments what your top 5 games of 2023 were. I'm interested in reading through them. And stay healthy this year, everybody.